Hello and welcome to today's 40 Apps in 40 Minutes Technology webinar. Now I'm going to change the name slightly, approximately 40 apps in somewhere around 40 minutes. After all, for our technology webinars, in order to have them apply towards CUs, you have to have 3 hours of webinars, so I am doing the webinars in 1 hour increments. I just didn't want to change the name of the webinar because 40 apps in 40 minutes sounds so much better than 61 apps in 60 minutes. It just doesn't quite have the same meaning to it. Okay, so thank you for joining us for this webinar. I am Mark Oakton, a coordinator with the Curriculum and Professional Development Division. I get to work with the Technology Integration and Support Program and to also work with supporting teachers in the professional growth system. Okay, so people always ask me, Mark, how do I get credit for attending this webinar? A couple of things you have to do. First, you have to view the entire webinar. You can't just turn it on and walk away. We have it in the Google Classroom and in Edpuzzle to help you to maintain your focus and watch the entire webinar, including answering the pop-up questions that happen throughout the presentation. The first one you'll see in just a moment. Third thing you need to do is you need to complete the exit survey that is at the very end of the webinar. That's really important for us to get some feedback from you that can help me to better provide support for you. So do those few things and then you will get the credit. Again, this is a 1 hour webinar. It will give you 1 hour in PathLore, and you can use that towards contact units in the webinar category. As always, we want to remind you that this presentation is part of the Clark County School District's BlendEd Digital Learning Initiative, which is a collaborative effort between various branches within the Curriculum and Professional Development Division. These branches are the Online and Blended Learning Department, the Professional Development and Education Office, or PDE Office, Technology Integration Support, and the Nevada Ready 21 program. Together, we are working across the district with multiple entities to try to get online and blended learning into more and more of our classrooms. When we're talking about the district's BlendEd initiative, what we mean, we're looking at combining the best elements of face-to-face instruction with the best elements of online and digital learning. Instead of talking about blended education in the Clark County School Districts, we talk about BlendEd. In BlendEd, we are looking at 3 key elements: the digital curriculum, the guided instruction, and the authentic assessment, or what we call the CIA of digital learning. If you think about it, all classrooms are designed on these 3 elements: curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And they always have been. You can't do any of them without the other, and they should have an equal balance in every classroom. However, this does look a little bit different in the BlendEd classroom. Remember that BlendEd is a mixture of face-to-face instruction and digital content. Many of you are already using an element of digital curriculum in your classroom, which means that you are on your way towards a BlendEd learning environment. Imagine, if you will, a triple Venn diagram. Each and every day, we are somewhere within that Venn diagram. Some days we're more involved with content, and other days we're more involved with instruction. The spot we're aiming for is where the curriculum, instruction, and assessment converge. Before I get started sharing this list of apps that I wanted to share with you, I thought it was important to let you know why. First of all, most of these apps are free. I know that teachers, we're on a budget, and our schools are on budgets as well. There are lots of high-quality apps out there for teachers and for students to use that are funded through advertising or other sources like grants. And because of that, we can get these apps at no cost for us and for our students to use. This is really, really important if we're asking students to download apps as part of a Bring Your Own Device initiative, the BYOD. So that's been important for me as I look at apps, is the cost. We do have some apps that I'm sharing with you today that do have a cost. Some of these apps do have, some of the free apps as well have a cost for the premium features. We sometimes call those the freemium apps. They're free to try, but you have to pay extra you have to pay for the extras. If I share an app with you that does have a cost, I think it is because I really believe that this is worth the money, and I don't say that lightly because I purchased very few apps. But if I'm sharing with you the one that has a cost, it's because I really strongly value that one. There are plenty of other apps on the list that are absolutely free with no add-ons, and you don't have to worry about them. As well, I'm going to talk about apps on the iPad because the iPads seem to be the most prevalent. I'm not talking Google Apps for Education today. If you logged in hoping to see Google Apps for Education, we do have a component of that, but this is looking at apps for the iPad. I have lots of webinars that I do specifically for using G Suite, mostly in the Chrome browser, whether it's on a Chromebook or just in any other device using the Chrome browser. We do lots of those. Today's webinar is focusing primarily on the iOS, but a lot of these apps do have Android or mobile web browser equivalents, so they can be used even for those students who don't have the iOS device. Not all, but most. Okay. I want to give you some bonus content as well. I'm going to do few app shares throughout this presentation. As well, we want the apps to be in a variety of categories. So we have some apps that are looking at Google Apps. We now refer to it as G Suite for Education. We're looking at coding apps, apps for formative assessment, augmented and virtual reality, digital publishing, which is where we're the heaviest in this presentation because there are so many iPad apps out there for digital publishing. We have a few apps for professional productivity, some subject-specific apps, demonstration apps, as well as some apps that don't fit. Or I should say, one app that really doesn't fit into any of these categories, and then one thing that I just call bonus content, which is about how to share these apps with the class, or I should say, how to see what the students are doing on these apps, and how students can share what they're doing and producing with the entire class. So we'll start with G Suite for Education, and these are the first 6 apps. And I'm going to put them all on one slide because you're mostly familiar with them. So we have these Google apps. Most of our schools in the district have become Google schools. They're using G Suite for Education. I know I haven't updated the slide with the Google apps. That's okay, G Suite for Education. As a district, we've now gone, starting in January, we went Google, and so everyone is using their Clark County School District Google email address for email. We should be using the apps as well with our students just because makes it easier for us to work with our students and to help them to use the online format. I would highly recommend that these apps are installed on all the devices, on everyone's iPads. The first app is Google Drive. Drive is basically a cloud storage area. It is like a virtual USB hub, USB flash drive, whatever you want to call it. It's great because we no longer have to store all of our documents on these USB drives that we put on our keychain or put in our wallets or our purses. Doesn't fit my wallet. We no longer have to use these USB drives that we put in our pockets and have fall out and lose them or they get damaged. Now everything is stored. If you've heard the phrase on the cloud, it's really that we're storing it online, and it's great for kids. The great thing about our Google Drive is we have unlimited storage. Woohoo! You don't have to worry about maxing out your space. I have over 60 gig in my district Google Drive because I do a lot of things that take up a lot of memory. Most of you probably don't have near as much as that. I don't worry about it. It's not like the old days where I'd have my stuff on the server and the site-based technician or the ECS would come to me and say, "Hey Mark, you got to clear out the stuff on the server. You're taking up too much space. Why is it that you're taking up half the space of our school's entire server?" Not a problem anymore. So I think that is amazing. Okay, having Drive installed on your device, on the student's device, makes it really easy to get things from their device very quickly and to be able to access them and get them back and to turn them in. The other apps, we have Google Docs. If you're not familiar with Docs, Docs is Google's version of Word, and having it on your device will allow you, when I say you here, I mean the students, to create and edit Google Docs as well as to share them with other people. If you're going to have your students do any type of word processing, this is the great way to do it. The next app is Google Sheets, which is Google's version of Excel. Again, with this app, you can create and edit a spreadsheet just like you would in Excel, except it's all stored online. Google Slides is Google's answer to PowerPoint. It allows for the creating and sharing and editing of slideshows. My presentations that I do for these webinars are almost always done in Google Slides. I like them much better than And PowerPoint, I like that I can pull it up on any device, anywhere, anytime, and work on it. And that whenever I get back to my desktop in my office, everything I've done is right there online, and I don't have to worry about updating and making changes, and worry about which version I did where and worked on where, and making sure that I have the most up-to-date version. It's always the up-to-date version, which is a great thing for me. As well, you see on here that I have Google Classroom. There's a Google Classroom app that you can have the students have on their iPads. That should be on student iPads. That way they can submit assignments that they do on their iPads through Google Classroom. So Google Classroom is really easy. It's just a tool to allow you to send out and receive back assignments and information and documents and communications. And so with a Google Classroom installed on their iPads, on student iPads, it's really easy for them to get what you're pushing out to students and have them return the work to you. And finally, I added this one, Google Keep. Google Keep is a note-taking tool. And you say, well, that's, and I think students should use it. I use Google Keep for a lot of my notes. It helps me to organize them. But one of the really neat things about Google Keep is it integrates with all of the other apps, with the Google Docs specifically, and Google Slides. If students are working on, let's say, a research paper, and they go into the library or they go into the computer lab and they're taking notes, they can take notes and put their notes into Google Keep. And then when they're working on their actual document, they can pull those notes from Google Keep into the document that they're working on. And it's a great way of allowing them to organize their notes in one place that's built just for organizing notes, and then pulling those notes into the word processing tool. Okay. So those are the Google apps for education. Okay, so the next set of apps that we're going to look at are those apps that are designed to teach students how to code and how to begin coding. On a very simple level, obviously, but to help students to start understanding that logic that is inherent with coding. And I think this is super important for us to focus on with our kids, at least to give them the opportunity to have some exposure to, because that is where a large portion of the jobs for the future, I think, are going to be. That's where there's this huge economic opportunity for our students, and so giving them this exposure at an early age can help to grow that interest in coding and computer science, to help prepare students for studying it at the secondary and the college level, and then for this industry. And the first one of these coding apps is a fun little one called Daisy the Dinosaur. And as it says up here, it's simply to control a cartoon dinosaur. This is really used as an introduction to coding and the logic that goes with coding. When you get into Daisy the Dinosaur, there are two modes. There's a free play mode and a challenge mode. I recommend that we start students with the challenge mode, which gives the students progressively more difficult tasks to complete. And now I say that they're still very, very simple tasks. I think there's only 4 or 5, just a handful of different tasks that they complete. But it walks students through learning to complete those tasks. And after that, students get to play with the free play mode and be a little bit more creative in what they make Daisy the Dinosaur do. They're allowed to have some commands such as move, turn, grow, shrink, jump, roll, spin. And these, as well, these can be input with dependencies such as when you touch a character or shake the iPad, it will make Daisy do these things. It is very much at an elementary level, but it's a great way to start students with getting an idea of what coding is all about. And Scratch Junior is a little bit, I'd say it's a step up from Daisy the Dinosaur, in that it has more complex activities that it allows students to do. Really, with Scratch Junior, it's a free form where students are able to add commands. It's all symbols based, so this can be used with our students who are not yet readers. They don't have to be able to read to be able to make the characters in Scratch Junior perform the different commands. So they can add backgrounds, they can have multiple characters, they can actually record sounds that they have the characters make. or if they want to record themselves speaking, the characters can have a prompt where they actually will speak and play that recording from the student. There's the ability for there to be simple interactions between characters. For example, if one character moves across the screen and bumps into or touches another character, that can prompt that character to do something based upon what it's coded to do. There's movements such as grow, shrink, disappear, reappear. There's the ability to have it repeat commands, to pause and to stop. Again, the idea is simply to help our students understand the logic of coding. It is at an elementary level, but it could be used, it could be used at the middle school level as well, to help students just start getting the sense of the logic, which is really what it's about. Just give them that introduction into coding. Hopscotch becomes a little bit more complex. Hopscotch actually allows people to make simple games that can be shared with others that have an iPhone or an iPad. This increases that level of authenticity that I like to talk about. It becomes an authentic task, and it allows students to start seeing, especially our students who call themselves the gamers, who like to play the video games. They can see how the actions of the characters on the screen are responses to the stimuli. One of the things I really, really, really like about Hopscotch is that there are tutorials that walk you through the learning. And so that it says, okay, this is what you want to do, and it will walk you through it step by step. So that way you, as the teacher, do not have to be the coding expert necessarily. Goodness, I certainly am not. But it allows the students to learn despite what you don't know. It allows you to give some exposure to the students in this area of coding. Again, I would probably say that this should be used at the upper elementary school through middle school levels. It does become a little bit more complex. There's multiple menus that the students will have to choose from. Again, really easy to do, but I probably would stick with, for the primary grades, I'd stick with Hopscotch and Days of the Dinosaur, and maybe move up into Hopscotch when they're a little bit more ready for that. Now the last of the coding apps that I want to talk about is Swift Playground. And Swift Playground is great. It's a lot of fun. This is the one that Apple is really pushing right now. They actually have tutorials. They have more than tutorials. They have a full K-12 curriculum that is focused on helping students learn to code using Swift, which is the coding language of Apple. This is the coding language that they use to create the apps that you have on your iPhone or your iPad. And so, it's a great way for students to be able to, in a fun, gamified atmosphere, learn to code. And so I'm going to do a little app share of just some of the introductory elements that are available in Swift Playground, so that way you can see what it looks like. Okay, so I'm in the Swift Playground app right now, and just notice it says My Playgrounds, and I have one up there that's Learn to Code, but maybe that's an entry level. I can get more playgrounds. If I click on the Get Playgrounds, I can have multiple ones here. I have at the bottom, notice there's Learn to Code playgrounds. There's some playgrounds for challenges and accessories and starting points. There are lots of different and I like how they have some that are specific to Hour of Code even. Okay, so there's an Hour of Code. We're on this beginner. I'm just going to start with these learn to code. I already have the fundamentals of Swift code Playground installed, so I'm going to do that. But you can progressively install more difficult and more complex playgrounds that the students can work in. So I'm going to go to this Learn to Code 1, because I am at the very basic level with my coding abilities. Okay, so it gives me some information there, adding a new command, and I like how you have the music there, you can hear it. I'm going to go ahead and just turn off the music. I'll leave the sound effects on there just for fun. Okay, so it gives me some directions that to add a new command. The goal is to combine move and turn commands to collect the gem. This puzzle is just like the last one. I've done a couple of these before. Okay, I'll turn off the sound effects. The guy's squeaking at me. Okay.
I'll turn back on when I play it. Okay, so you can read the directions. Okay, this time Byte needs to turn left to reach the gem. You can use the commands from the previous puzzle as well as a new command, turn left. Okay, so some directions there. And so I'm going to tap where it says tap to enter code. Okay, and you see I have some code there at the bottom. So I'm going to click on move forward. I'm looking at it needs to go forward 1, 2 times. Then I need a command to turn left. And I think I need to move forward 2 more times after I turn left. And then, well, let's try it. I'm going to try to only move forward once and then collect the gem. I'm going to run the code to see what happens. But first, let me turn on the background music and the sound effects for your entertainment. And hit run code. Just thinking about it. Moves forward twice, like I said, turns left, moves forward once, tries to collect the gem, but it doesn't work. Notice I can also drag it and move it around so I can change the perspective. So that didn't work. Alright, I've got to edit the code. I have to delete the collect gem, add move forward, collect gem now. I'm going to click run my code. Let's see what happens. It goes back to the beginning, moves forward once, moves forward twice, like I said, turns left, moves forward once, moves forward twice, and collects the gem. Woohoo! I am the winner. Great job. Okay, I'll turn the sound off so I can finish talking. You can see just how easy it is, and it walks you through the process. They do become increasingly more complex. As students go on, they have more commands that they have to choose from, but it allows them to see the commands. That is the Apple Swift Playground app.
Okay, our next set of apps are the apps for formative assessment. As you know, formative assessment is a powerful tool for the classroom and to be able to know where your students are, so that way you can know the effectiveness of your instruction, what kids learn, what they can do, what they can't do. That way you can make those instructional decisions on a daily basis. Now, I do have an entire webinar that is just focused on formative assessment. And so because of that, I'm not going to go through and show a lot of the apps that I've shown in that webinar before. I'm just going to show you a couple of things that I'll go through some of the apps that I've shown in other webinars, but I'm not going to do an app share of anything that I've already shown in the formative assessment webinar. Okay. So first thing we're going to talk about is Plickers. I've demonstrated this in another webinar, so I'm not going to do a demo here. Plickers is ideal for you if you are in a low-tech classroom. Maybe you have your own personal iPhone or Android phone or iPad or Android tablet. If that's the case, you can use Plickers as a formative assessment tool. Really what it is, it's a series of cardstock cards that you can print out. You can put them on regular paper. I prefer printing them on cardstock. It just works better because then they're not flopping around as students are trying to use them. And you scan using this app, you can scan the classroom as students hold up these cards. Now it limits the choices for students to A, B, C, and D, but it allows you to ask a question, whether you do it on the fly or have a pre-planned question that you ask them. You ask that question, and at a glance, you can see exactly who knows it, who doesn't know it. It's, I think, much more effective than the thumbs up, thumbs down, because each Plickers card is different and each one is assigned to a particular student. It will actually give you the data that you need to know who understands, who doesn't understand, and it will give you it right there on your iPad quantitatively, and it will tell you as you're scanning it, you can see each individual person that's scanning it if they got it right or wrong. It color codes it as it scans the entries, and so it's really, really easy to use. Because each card is different, students don't know what answer everyone else is holding up. So it's not like a thumbs up, thumbs down, where they can look around the classroom and see what everyone else is holding up and mimic them. It's a great tool, and it makes it so students can't just hide. Okay, really easy to use. Again, you can either create quizzes ahead of time to use with Plickers, or you can ask the questions on the fly, and so great tool. Edpuzzle is a great tool, and you're seeing it in use right now. It allows you to take videos that are already created. You can take videos that are on YouTube. You can take videos that are in Khan Academy or a number of other places, TED Talks, or you can create your own videos like I'm doing, and you put the videos. It integrates with Google Classroom really well, which is awesome. But there is an Edpuzzle iPad app that you can use also to assign the videos. And I'm not sure. It says coming soon for the Android. I didn't check to see. I think it should be out by now to operate on Android tablets if you do have Android tablets available for you. I know that people that don't have the iPads typically are using Google Classroom, and like I said, there is that Google Classroom integration, as you know, because you're doing that right now as students in this Google Classroom. Again, you put the questions in there. I don't like using, I think Edpuzzle is great for formative assessment. I don't know that I'd use it for summative assessment, but you can embed the questions like I'm doing here in this webinar and all of my other webinars that you are accessing, and you can make it so students can't fast forward through portions. Again, with students, I would not use an hour-long webinar like I'm doing. I would use a 5 to 7 minute video clip tops. Don't go beyond that. So that's Edpuzzle. The next one we have on our list is actually not an app, but it works well with devices. It's a website, and it's simply goformative.com. You can use it on computers, on iPads, on whatever you have. It is free, or you can sign up for free, I should say, and it allows you to create electronic assignments for your students. You can either create something from scratch, or you can upload a PDF or a picture or a Word document that you already have on your computer. If you already have quizzes created, you can upload them. And so I think I like GoFormative. If you want more information on GoFormative, please go. I spend a lot of time on it in my formative assessment webinar. So go back and check out that formative assessment webinar and look at that app share on GoFormative, because it is very, very detailed, and there's a lot that you can do with it, and it provides great information, great data for you. Things like students are able to label a picture to show their work. They can actually work out the math problem in a drawing format, so they write on it just like they would write on paper, and you can see all of their work that they do, rather than just having the multiple choice answer where they select the correct answer. You can use videos and embed those videos. Lots of great things that you can do with GoFormative. Quizzes and Kahoot are some of my favorite apps. I don't have Kahoot on here. I pulled it off because I spent a lot of time on it on my formative assessment webinar, as I did with quizzes. These are a great way to conduct formative assessments. They are device agnostic because they're web-based. They have quizzes that are already ready for you that you can use, or you can create your own. And they both have self-paced. They have teacher-led features, teacher-paced, or self-paced features that you can use for homework with them. And they're delivered in a game-like format, which the students really, really like. Padlet is a great tool just for brainstorming. It's basically a wall that you create where students use like sticky notes to post onto the wall their information. So you can use that as a formative assessment tool as well, just to see what students know, to brainstorm. Really, really quick and easy to use. At $3.99, StickPick is an app that lets you randomly choose a student. It's similar to what we used to do with a can of sticks. It's just like that. You tap it, you swipe it, you shake it, you pick out a student. The StickPick app does have some question starters for you to ask students. You can choose the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy. You can record how well a student responds during the classroom discussion. Consistently scoring near the top or bottom. You can change the level of Bloom's taxonomy so that students aren't either bored or frustrated. Depending upon the level of the student's level of English proficiency, they might be asked simple yes or no questions, or to elaborate longer sentences. All these things are inside the StickPick program, so you can use that as a formative assessment tool. And Nearpod, which I do want to do a little app share with, it allows you to use your iPads to manage content that the students are accessing online in interactive presentation, collaboration, and real-time assessment tool. Okay, I would also like to do a little demo of Nearpod. Again, I have my student account on the left, an iPad for my student, and my teacher account on the right, which I've already logged in using my Google account. So I'm going to look at my library, and there's a lot of paid content in Nearpod, but you can do some smaller things that are free. I'm going to pull from something that somebody else has developed, and that's the great thing, is you can pull what other people have developed as you explore. If I go to the Explore feature, I can look at other people's lessons, and let me just pull one. I'm going to grab a random lesson here. Second grade holiday math. How about that? Okay. I don't know. I haven't looked at it, so I'm not going to pull it, but you can proof through those. I've already looked at some, so I have one in my library. I'm going to stick with that, and it's solving multi-step equations. And so I'm going to go and do that. I'm going to click on Live Lesson down at the very bottom. You can do student pace where students do it on their own, but I like to, for demonstration purposes, the live lesson. Ones are easier. I've already practiced with this, so I'm going to start a new one. Okay, and it gives me a code to share with my audience. Now I'm going to, as a student, enter that code in here. And I'm going to join. Now you can assign it through Google Classroom. So I have this lesson on solving multi-step equations. And I'm going to send that in and join the class. And as a teacher now, I'm going to close this because everyone's in my class, and I can start it. Okay, getting ready to ask the student ready to take a quiz, and the student gets to click on next. Okay, what's the correct solution? I'm just going to pick a random answer because I'm not looking at it carefully. And we got 2 questions here, and I can see, I have to submit by clicking next. I can see on the teacher side that Mark got both of them wrong, and so Mark needs some extra support in those areas. Alrighty. So as I scroll with the teacher side, it automatically scrolls on the student side, so I can have a conversation and a discussion and an explanation of the content now. And instead of projecting this onto the screen up in front and using the lecture that format, it's interactive where the students have it in front of them on their iPad. And so I can go through and talk about why x plus 5 equals 1, and how to solve, I should say, not why, how to solve x plus 5 equals 1 for x, and that x equals -4, and some other examples. And I can go through and use a pictorial example for that, and how to solve it that way, because this is how it's already developed. All right, now we also have video included, so he asked me, do I want and if I'm projecting it, I might want the video to only come across on mine, but in this case I want the video to be available on all devices. And so the student,
so before we get to the algebra
so I see the lecture, the video
method
playing
for
here.
solving equations,
I'll let it play for just a second.
We'll start with a visual representation, the picture model, where we have 3 grocery bags with some amount of cans.
So you can see the video playing there. I'm not going to go through and watch that with you. You don't need to watch it because the content's not important to us, just the method, and more explanation and direction with some visuals, and that I would use. Now we've had the lesson. Students get to answer some more questions. Okay, what's the first step in solving this equation? And I'm going to say it is to add 7 to both sides. Are you sure? Is that your final answer type thing? So yes, I want to send that answer in, and we see that, woohoo, I got it right. Awesome. So the instruction's working. I keep going to have some more conversation, scroll through those as a teacher, and talk about them. Now I have to actually solve all steps, and so now I have to solve it as a student. Okay, so 3x plus 5 equals 26. As a student, I'm going to write down 3x plus 5 equals 26. I get to solve it. That's a really ugly plus sign there. Minus 5, 3x equals 21 divided by 3, x equals 7. Okay, and I choose that and I click send. Do I really want to send it? Is it my final answer? Yes, it is.
Thank you. And notice I see it on my side as a teacher, and I can pull it up and look at it and see if Mark in this case has an understanding. I can even share it with all the class. I click on share and I can show everybody that answer. Notice it does not show whose it is, so I can pull up student work, share it with the entire class, and talk about why people got it right, why people got it wrong, and what not. I'm going to unshare it and close that, and I can keep going. Same type of problem again. I'm not going to do that a second time. I can have an affective question, how I feel about this. It's math, so I have to say I'm completely lost. Notice there's no wrong answer. It just gives the teacher feedback. And there's some credits to the person who created this lesson in Nearpod. So super easy to use, great way of delivering lesson and having that guided practice and that formative assessment all embedded. Okay, so there's Nearpod for you. Thank you. The next app is Socrative. Socrative has both a teacher and a student app available. In the teacher version or online, you as the teacher are able to create quizzes. Those quizzes can be thought out and planned in advance or created on the fly. You can also use this app as an exit ticket. It's a great way to conduct formative assessment. You can take the data to create groups or revisit topics as needed. Students join by opening the app. They open up the student app, and then they enter your quote, air quotes, room with the room name that you give them. And so that's one way that you have to do it. And you can see with Socrative what students are doing because they submit the work as they go. And so it's really cool that you can see them doing the work. Okay, I'm going to do an app share of the app Socrative. And on the right-hand side, you see, we have two iPads here that I'm showing both at the same time. On the right-hand side, we see the teacher iPad, and on the left-hand side, you see the student iPad. Okay, so I'm going to start with my teacher iPad. And notice that this app does have upgrades that you can pay for. And so as my teacher iPad, I have a code up there at the top, and I'm going to use that in just a second. But I have some options here of using a quick question with multiple choice, true, false, or short answer, assigning a quiz, doing a space race, or an exit ticket. It works well for all of these, and that's how it's designed. I'm just going to demonstrate one thing, which is the quiz. And so I have a quiz here, and it's a world facts quiz. And I want to assign that, and I'm going to choose my method of delivery, instant feedback, open navigation, or teacher paced. And so maybe I want to do this as a teacher paced. I'm going to demonstrate just that. We could select any of those. Require student names, shuffle answers. Maybe I'll shuffle the answers just for fun. Show question feedback, show final score. I like to turn that on for the kids, and we click start. Now it tells me that I have this code here. Okay. Now I'm going to use that code. That code is the room name. So in my student login, I'm going to put in RFR ZTZ RF and click join. And my name for this is just going to be, I'm going to put in student for my name just so I can have it in there. The students get to enter their names. And so now it takes me through the questions, and there are 5 questions. And so this is part of instruction. I've already taught this. I did my spiel however I want to teach it. And so I'm going to put these questions in here, and you'll see what happens. So I'm going to say, let's see, I wasn't really listening, so I think it might be the Mississippi River. I put it in there. I click submit answer, and we see that the student is now waiting. And on the teacher side, I see that one student's answers. You can see how many students have answered out of all your students. I can look at how the students did. I see that 100% of my students, all one of us, answered the Mississippi River when the correct answer is the Nile River, because I have that question in there. Okay, so I know that there's something I need to reteach at that point. I click on next, and it brings up the second question for the student. True, false question. The diameter of the Earth is 8,000 miles. I'm going to click on true, submit answer. We see now that on the teacher side, one of the students have responded. How did that student do? Woohoo! I got it right. Okay, awesome. So I click on next. Okay, I have an image here. What country is that an outline of? I know that one. Submit my answer. We see that in real time that it shows that it's submitted. I can look to see how the students did. Awesome, I see I got it right. I can have discussions as I go. Iceland is the world's biggest island. I don't actually know the answer to that question, so let's see if I got it right. I did. Okay, perfect. There's one more question. The world's largest ocean is the what ocean? Let me see. I'm going to get that wrong on purpose. I'm going to say it's the Caspian Sea. I'm going to submit that answer. Okay, so I can see that answer in there. On the teacher side, I can show the answer, hide the answer. I can show who said what. Notice I can show an explanation if I've added it. Okay, now I can click on finish as on the teacher side. On the student side, notice I got 3 out of 5 questions correct, 60%, so it does give the student that instant feedback as to what they got right. On the teacher side, I can view a chart. I can see showing names and answers if I like, what students answered, what they got right, what they didn't get right. So it's a quick, easy way of seeing that. As well, I can get a report. I can have that report added to my Google Drive if I like. So Socrative is a really easy way of giving, if your students all have a device to work on, that you can give an assignment and have it so it comes back to you in real time, which is something that I just am super, super, super excited about. And those are our formative assessment apps. Okay, now we're going to look at some of the virtual reality or augmented reality apps. Okay, and these are ones that are really neat for the students to use. Google Earth, you've probably seen this on your computers. It's also available on the Apple and the Android devices. I didn't put the link in here for the Android, but you can look it up. In the classroom, I typically use it with a PC connected to your projector. It's great with working with maps. It allows the users to see satellite imagery of places that they choose anywhere in the world. It even, I know that I've seen places where you can go underwater with it and it can look at the sea floor, and that's neat. Okay. I like to use Google Earth to look around and see places that I've been to around the world, and you can pin places and do virtual field trips using Google Earth, and you can zoom in, and it's really a neat way for students to see beyond Las Vegas, which they typically don't. Aurasma is a great augmented, it's almost like a QR reader. You create images and you upload video or other images that are associated with the image that you create an Aurasma with. I think the way I like to see this used most often is in a virtual gallery walk in the classroom, where students create maybe a presentation that they have or a video recording that they have, and it's associated with a picture, so they put that picture on the wall, and then the other students in the classroom can all go around the room and scan that image with their Aurasma app open on their iPad and see what that first student has created. The next 2 apps I'm not going to talk a whole lot about right here, but because I have an app share that I'm going to show you in just a second. With Elements 4D, it shows how chemicals and it's a chemistry app basically, how the chemicals and the elements, that's the word I was looking for, wow, the elements, how they react together and how they play off of each other, and so that's really neat. Okay, I wanted to show you how the Elements 4D app worked. Do a little app share of it, and I am not a science person. I don't have a background in science, so we're going to do a little bit of trial and error as somebody who really has no comprehension of the science curriculum, because I don't know what the different which elements interact with each other and will combine. So we'll have some successes and some failures, and you hear my rustling of papers as I try to get these Elements 4D cubes working. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that app, and it's loading. So I can, there are blocks, and you'll see these blocks in just a second, that you download. They're just Adobe PDF files, and you download them and print them out and put them together. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on Start 4D, and it's going to access my camera. Okay, I've got my camera here, and so I've got some elements here in element blocks, and you can see that they're just paper cubes, but this app recognizes them because they have specific patterns on them. And so if I look here, I'm just going to look at one at a time just to not make it confusing. I've got potassium here, and one of the neat things about it, notice that I've got my square cube, but as it looks at potassium, let's bring up another one. We'll do sodium here. It looks at sodium. Notice what you see is not the paper cube necessarily, but you see this interactive, this virtual reality, or I should say this augmented reality image where there's some sodium, and there's actually a metallic looking substance in there, which I'm going to assume is what sodium in its pure form would look like. So I flip this over and I go to potassium, something very similar. I turn it over to helium. And notice that there's no visual in there. I guess it's as a gas, helium probably has no. You probably can't see it at all. Let's see, how about hydrogen? Hydrogen, same thing. And there's great things. There's, notice it says this is the first, I guess the first element with the different scientific information there. Wow, I'm really struggling with this because it's been a long time since I took chemistry in college. Okay, it tells you as one electron. All right, so I have multiple of these blocks, and they're not all the same. So I've got my hydrogen there, and I'm going to bring in sulfur. Now notice it recognizes both hydrogen and sulfur, and the sulfur looks a lot different. You've got these, looks like, it's colored green, which makes sense because I've seen sulfur and it's green, and it's got the information. Now, if I touch hydrogen and sulfur, let's see what happens. I don't know if these can combine or not. Oh wow, look at that. We have hydrogen sulfide and a chemical equation there. 8 H2 plus an S8 equals 8 H2S, and we see how they combine. So that's pretty neat. So I flip this over. Let's try helium and sulfur. I'm going to guess that they probably won't combine. Let's see. Let's let it recognize both of them. Sometimes you have to play with it a little bit. Alright, it's got the helium. Let's add the sulfur. Oops. It's hard to do this when you're looking at them. Okay, it's got both helium and sulfur there. If I put them together, nothing happens. It looks like these two will not combine. Alright, so let's see here. Let's try lithium and chlorine. Lithium and chlorine, put them together. No, oh wow, notice the appearance looks completely different. And now I have lithium chloride. Now, as a non-science person, I was hoping to see some pretty cool interactions, some spontaneous combustion or something like that as I combined different elements. And it doesn't quite do that, but it does show you what it looks like and gives you the chemical equation. And so I can imagine how neat this would be in a science classroom to help students understand how these elements interact. Okay, so that is the Elements 4D app. Really easy. These paper blocks are absolutely free. You just download them, and the app recognizes them, and you can mess with them. And here's sodium and mercury, and they do not want to combine. Okay, those don't work together. So we see the two completely different elements there, side by side. And that is just really neat. So I've had a lot of fun with this, even though I have no idea what any of this means. I should take it to my daughters who are taking chemistry and understand this material, and they can teach me a little bit. As well, I'm going to show you the Anatomy 4D app, which allows you to view a human body or a fully animated beating heart, and to look at the different parts of it and to look at those different systems. So I'm going to show you those right now. And it is really cool. This one does not allow me to. I have to do it in the portrait mode. I can't do it in landscape mode. In this case, I'm looking at the Anatomy 4D app, and as you can see here, I've got this 3D image. This is again another example of that augmented reality. I've got a 3D image that I'm looking at, which is really just happening as I scan my iPad over this sheet of paper that I printed off the computer. It's just a PDF file. And in the lower right hand corner, I have the different options that I can select from so I can see more closely. let's say I want to focus on the skeletal system. I can get rid of everything except for the skeletal system and just see the skeleton by scrolling around and getting rid of these. So now I've just got the skeletal system of this individual. Now I want to add maybe the muscular system on top of it. I can select that and add the muscular system. Or maybe I want to focus on the nervous system. This makes a cool image. The kids are going to like that. Especially if I get rid of the skeletal here. Watch this. Oh, the brain with the eyes. Okay. That's a cool image for the kids. They can see that. But it helps them as you can go bit by bit through the body and talk about the different systems and what they look like. They do have male and female characters. So you can be aware of that. You're going to have to work through that with your kids. And you can look at the respiratory system, whatever system it is. So that's the human body. Now as well, this is what I also like. So they only have 2 images that you can do this with. And here I have an image of the human heart. And I've got all of the different aspects. I notice I can make it stop pumping and turn the blood flow on and off. And normally there's a sound. I don't know why with the app share it's not showing the sound, so I can take away parts of the heart, bring them back so I can look at each part specifically. I can zoom in and out. So I've zoomed in on that heart. I can look specifically at whatever I want to look at if I need to. And that would give students a way to not, have the experience almost of dissecting something. They can look at it closely without having to have it physically there, but I like how they can see it moving. So I'm going to turn this paper around and they can see they can look around the back. Unfortunately, you can't scan the bottom side of the paper, so you can't go below it, but that's a real easy way for students to see with this Anatomy 4D app. They can look at, like I said, the human body and the heart.
And the last and my favorite of the augmented and virtual reality apps is Google Expeditions, and this is the one that I'm just so uber excited about. It is, as Google says, a virtual reality teaching tool, and it allows you to take your students on field trips to practically anywhere in the world and to give them a guided tour of that location. And it's, and I say in here, it's that they're independently experiencing a guided tour, which sounds like it contradicts itself, but they're able to not just look at what you want them to look at, but as they turn their iPad around, or if they are using the Google Cardboard, and you see the logo there for Google Cardboard, if they're using a Google Cardboard device with Viewer, with a phone or an Android device or an Apple device inserted into the Google Cardboard, then it really makes it a virtual reality experience in that they don't see the classroom around them. They only see this virtual field trip that you're showing to them. And so I'm going to do an app share for that because that is probably the thing that I'm most excited about out of all these apps. I want to show you Google Expeditions. And in this case, I'm going to use 2 iPads, one as the teacher iPad and the other one as the student's. On the left, in our app share, you can see my iPad, the teacher iPad. And on the right-hand side, you can see the student iPad. Now, when you first log in, what you see is what on the student iPad, it says be a guide or be an explorer. Our students obviously are going to be explorers and follow, and this will look for somebody that's on the Wi-Fi because they all have to be connected to the same Wi-Fi. And as the guide here, it tells me what Wi-Fi network I'm connected to, and it tells me I'm looking for explorers. And I get to go through all of these different Google Expeditions that are already created, and I can pick from one of those that obviously that fits the content that I'm teaching. So just for demonstration purposes, I've already chosen one today and downloaded it, and it's this one about the Aztec and Maya ruins. And it's going to tell me on the right-hand side my student account,
sees that this one is live and there's no explorers, it's going to click on join, and I'm going to click on it's waiting for teacher. So on the teacher iPad, I'm going to click on start. Now a couple of things to notice. At the point I start, the student iPad points right to the ground because I have it pointing down, so I'm going to just move it. For the student iPad, as I physically move the iPad around, it can look in any direction, including straight up. If I look straight down, it gets a little fuzzy, and not that there's much to see on the ground, but I can look around and see these. The teacher iPad, however, I have to actually scroll around using my finger. And one of the neat things is it gives us some information here. So I can read information about Chichen Itza here, and then I have a couple of touch points that I can choose, like the High Priest grave. So if I just click on that, it's going to point to where that is. And so you see on the teacher iPad right here where the High Priest grave is. And notice on the right hand side, the student iPad, it now has an arrow. And that arrow is directing me as a student to turn to see the High Priest's grave. And as a teacher now in the classroom, I can explain a little bit about this High Priest grave, and there's some information there for me as well. I can do some additional research on my own. One of the neat things you can notice on the teacher's side, there's this little smiley face that you see now. The teacher can see where the student's looking. And so that's a really neat aspect, that you can tell what the kids are looking at and with the smiling faces. So I've talked about the High Priest grave. Now as a teacher, I'm going to direct the attention to the sanctuary. And so when I click on the sanctuary, it directs that up there, and I can see that the students are looking at the sanctuary. Okay, so maybe I'm done talking about El Osario, and I want to talk about El Castillo, and I'm probably saying that wrong, and if you're a Spanish teacher, please forgive me. I did not do very well at that topic. And so I can explore it as a teacher. My students can explore it by simply looking around. They can zoom in and look at different things. I can explain things, and then I click on the temple. And my student takes me automatically, there's the teacher, but the student has to turn around and find that temple. So that now they're looking at it, and you know the students are looking at it, and you have that conversation explaining it. And so you can do that with each of these, as many of these items as you want to talk about. And of course, they all apply to your content because you're only teaching what's relevant here. You're not just using this for the fun of using it, although with that said, it is very fun. So we've got these Mayan ruins here. I can see that the student account is looking, the student is looking right there. I can tell exactly where they're looking. I do my explanation. I direct their attention, and I can do that with each of these. And that is Google Expedition. So it's a great virtual reality tour that you can take. It's a guided independent tour, because as a student I have complete independence to look at whatever it is I want to in that particular location, but you as a teacher do get to see what they're looking at and get to have those conversations. So I hope that you have fun with Google Expeditions. All it requires is an app. It's completely free, and it is amazing. The kids love it. If you're lucky enough to get the little cardboard devices, you can make them yourselves. You can find patterns for them online, but you do have to, maybe you know people who have old Android phones that they're not using anymore. You can just use them, connect them to a Wi-Fi, connect them to the Wi-Fi, and you can actually insert those into the Google Cardboard devices and create your own class set of Google Expedition glasses. Super cool. Wow, we are out of time, and I've only made it through 23 of my 60 apps. I guess I got too excited about doing these app shares with you instead of just talking about the apps. I wanted to have you see what they actually look like. What does this mean? This means that I'll have to do a part 2. It won't be advertised in Pathlore, but I'll simply create a part 2 in Pathlore, and it'll have a different code. If you want to watch part 2 of the 40 apps, obviously it's going to be more than 40 apps, but if you want to watch part 2, look for that to show up at a future date in our Google Classroom. Again, my name is Mark Oakton. I'm a coordinator here with the Curriculum and Professional Development Division. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me or any of those folks that are involved in the BlendEd initiative to provide support for you in integrating technology and blending your instruction. We're here to help. Have a wonderful day. Please make sure that you answer the exit survey at the very end here, and we definitely appreciate your time. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.